I'm Charlie Angus, the Member of Parliament for Timmins-James Bay, former journalist, former professional musician with a couple of Juno nominations, Northern historian with 7 published books, finishing my 8th book now. As well, I've done negotiations for First Nations, and I have been a television broadcaster. What I've really learned over the years in Parliament, there's this myth about being on the government side. What we end up seeing are people who end up being backbenchers, and in Parliament, backbenchers have very little opportunity. What I've done over my years is really learn how to work Parliament, how to work the committees, how to work opposition motions, research, to be able to push forward initiatives that matter, to be able to drop the gloves and be willing to drop the gloves to push government when necessary, but also to do negotiations. So, you know, out of the crisis that we saw in James Bay with the complete squalid school conditions for children, we launched a national campaign, Shannon's Dream, which has changed fundamentally the discussion about children's rights in Canada today. We have some of the highest suicide rates in the world in our region. Working with local groups, in that we began to start national work, building coalitions of people, working with people across party lines. So now we have all party support for a national suicide action plan. So in the last 2 majority governments, both under Stephen Harper and under Justin Trudeau, I've had more success than any other member of Parliament from any party in terms of actually being able to bring consensus on key issues that will make life better for people in Canada. Yeah, I think one of the really insidious myths that's always perpetrated in the North is that, you know, the Member of Parliament is some kind of government bagman. You got to vote for the insiders and they're going to give you money. That's not how it works, and that's not how it should ever work. In fact, in the last 4 years, Timmins-James Bay was one of the top 3 in the country for the number of projects that were approved. Why? Because we have good projects. And the civil service in Canada are not instructed by party hacks. They respond to good programs. In terms of FedNor funding, Timmins outscored Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie. I mean, we blew Nickel Belt out of the water. We blew away Kenora, Parry Sound. These are all on, you know, government side, yet we got more FedNor funding. So why is that? Well, we have really good projects. So what is my role in this? My role is to ensure that we push the government to make sure that FedNor remains strong. In recent years, under Liberals and Conservatives, they've both been cutting FedNor. Neither seems to have much faith in FedNor. They try and centralize the power of FedNor in the minister's office down in Mississauga. What my position is, and my role in Parliament, for all of the North, I don't care who you vote for in the North, what ridings represented, I want FedNor to be there. I want FedNor to have an augmented budget and to be a standalone agency. And right now, I've been the FedNor watchdog for the last 2 parliaments, 3 parliaments, and that, I think, reminds people that we have to have economic development in the North, and it holds government to account. So the money is coming in, and we're doing very, very well in Timmins-James Bay, and we will continue to do well because we have some great new projects, new opportunities, and new ideas, and I want to be really involved with the organizations and the people making it happen. It makes sense that you know, areas with larger population are going to get a larger percentage of funding. I mean, that's fair. But what's also fair is making sure that northern regions are not left behind. We're a resource-based economy. All the profits that come out of the mines, none of it stays in Timmins. It goes down to Queen's Park. Resource revenue controls go to Ottawa. So we have to be pushing government to bring investment back into the North. That's, again, one of the roles of economic diversification. And we have aging infrastructure, so we have northern projects. And that's, again, when we were in the top 3 for the number of projects approved. I mean, that's like a road in Casey Township. That's in Matheson at the waterfront. That's the Kirkland Lake Industrial Park, which is going to help the expansion of KL Gold. That's the Craft Creek Bridge here in Timmins. We're getting these projects approved because we have, across a region that's bigger than the United Kingdom, we have major infrastructure projects, you know, basically from Moosonee right down to the Farm Belt. my family comes from mining. I come from a mining town. I remember when Paul Martin cut the flow-through mining shares. The Liberal government didn't believe in that. I was the one person standing up in Parliament pushing again and again to re-establish the flow-through shares program because it was getting prospectors out on the ground. We now have that program. The problem is that under the Liberals and Conservatives, it's always year-to-year funding. We're saying, well, let's make it permanent. If it works, let's make it permanent. But what we need to be doing also is ensuring that we can bring new people in. We have a huge opportunity right now with an emerging booming economy. And a lot of that is going to be filled by young Indigenous, so we need to do better education. We're talking about putting clear funds in there, but also for training in trade so that they stay and they participate, and also inviting immigrant families in. The new immigrant families are going to really transform this region. So there's an immigration pilot project. We want to make that permanent. We want to make it easier for students who are coming to College Boreal or Northern College to get trained and then have the opportunity to stay, because they want to stay. And I meet with them, I meet with the colleges on this, I meet with the young immigrant families who say they see a future here in Timmins, and it's really exciting. So we want to be at the table as a partner, and it's what I've been doing locally and regionally and nationally. Well, when I was elected, it was considered normal, sad but normal, that children were being educated in squalid shacks in Ottawa where they were getting sick from cancer-causing chemicals. Nobody will ever say that that's normal again. Why? Because of the work that I've done with young Indigenous leaders like Shannon Coustache and Chelsea Edwards that fundamentally changed the discussion. So we've got the school in Ottawa-Pascat. We got the school in Kishetchewan. We got a youth center in the midst of a suicide crisis. We've got action on water. We're pushing on the housing. So we've seen significant transformation. We still have a long way to go. But what's fascinating for me is that I get a lot of calls now from Northwestern Ontario, which is presently under a Liberal MP, a former Indian Affairs Minister who should know how to work the system, who's been a no-show. So the Cat Lake crisis, they called me in to negotiate with the government. Grassy Narrows, I was invited in by the community where children are suffering from the effects of Minamata disease, horrific, life-damaging diseases. They asked me to do the negotiations for them with the government on the child education opportunities and getting that place cleaned up. And I worked with the former minister, Jane Philpott, until Trudeau kicked her out. And we were starting to move these yardsticks. So we have a long way to go, but we are going on that road together. And I think what people in Timmins know is that the people who live in the region, in the Indigenous communities, are part of the future of our region, and we don't leave anybody in our community behind. We don't leave anybody of our regions behind. And together, we're going to be a much stronger, much more vital region, because we're going to make sure that kids have proper opportunities in the future. Well, you know, we're the only party with a Northern Ontario platform. The other guys talk about rural. Well, rural's good, but we talk about Northern Ontario because we have specific issues. To that, certainly getting the federal share to the Northlander, we want to push the province to come back to the table to reestablish the Northlander. That'll make a huge difference on the Highway 11 corridor. We want to start tackling the problems of lack of broadband access in Northern Ontario. It's crazy. You're driving on the Trans-Canada Highway and you can't make contact, you can't get coverage. We have a huge housing crisis in Timmins, 2,000 homeless people. I mean, those numbers would have been unimaginable 10 years ago. The Trudeau government has announced a national housing plan, but they put in less money than Stephen Harper. We're saying we will put 500,000 units. That will create jobs. That will kickstart our local economy. That will give people safer housing and more secure opportunities. So the Northern Ontario plan of the Democratic Party has investments for forestry, investments for the new agricultural markets that are emerging right here in the Timmins region to be able to get some of these young agricultural entrepreneurs to market, working with the mining sector in terms of trades and in terms of also moving towards sustainability, like Borden Mine, which has now gone green. That's the future. The future is sustainability. It's not defending a 20th century economy like Andrew Scheer is trying to do. You know, Canada is the only G7 country without a food security strategy, and it's having a huge effect. I mean, I know families that go hungry regularly up north because the price of food is so crazy high. One of the long-term solutions, and I've worked with Mushkegowuk Council on this, and I've worked with Conservative and Liberal governments on this, we need the permanent road to be able to get supplies in and to lower costs. The air grocery program is not worked. The prices at the northern store are outrageously high. We need to have better opportunities. And again, if we're looking at a regional food economy, we have growing that's happening in Cochrane. We have opportunities for co-ops. That's where we'd like to say, how do we do sustainable food so that even within our region, we're feeding ourselves, and people from the farms in Valgagne, Timmins, Cochrane can be helping people in James Bay, and people in James Bay can also then, we've got some really interesting experiments in greenhouses and growing up there. So that's where I'd be putting investment in, say, let's get sustainable here. The Liberals promised national pharmacare back in 1993, and we're still waiting, and it won't happen as long as Justin Trudeau keeps hanging out with the big pharma lobbyists, because they don't want to make this happen. Right now, pharmacare across Canada costs about $34 billion a year, and over 2 million Canadians aren't getting coverage. And I just talked to a senior citizen who couldn't pay for a medication last night. A national pharmacare program would cost about $27 billion. So you already have savings. Of that, it would be about a $10 billion cost for the federal government. Why would it be more efficient? Because when you do bulk buying, you get efficiencies. It would also mean that companies weren't paying the cost of pharmacare for their employees, which allow them to reinvest. So how would we pay? Well, we're the only party that says we're not shy about taxes. If you make over $20 million a year, you're going to get taxed 1%. Now, I know if anybody out there is watching and they're making over $20 million a year and they don't want to get taxed 1%, well, don't vote for the N.D.P. But everyone else, get this. That 1% tax will bring in between $10 and $70 billion, according to the parliamentary budget officer, because the super rich, the gap between what they're making and year in, year out, that's what the statistics are showing us. Their wealth is increasing, but they're not paying their fair share, and they're shipping the money overseas to these tax havens. We're saying we're going to close the tax havens. We're going to get that 1% tax on the billionaire class so that we can pay for programs like dental care. We need free dental care. People cannot get through without free dental care. And we also need to cut immediately all the interest on student debt, because it is crippling. And when I'm at the doors talking to young families, it's their student debt that's killing them. Well, it's funny, you know, because Liberals and Conservatives always talk about debt. They don't talk about the debt that they have downloaded onto young families and students. The Trudeau government received $3 billion in profits from interest on student debt in the last 4 years. And they wrote off $6 billion in debt to corporations. That's not acceptable, because that debt that students are paying in terms of interest is crushing. When you come out with a debt of $40,000 to $100,000 and you've got some crappy precarious job and short-term contracts and no benefits, and you're having to pay, $1,000 a month plus interest, that's not acceptable. So we're saying immediately, we will end the interest on student debt now, permanently remove it, and then we need to start talking long-term about how we make post-secondary more affordable. Because you talk to businesses here, you talk to economic planners, and they're talking about education is for life. They're talking about retraining. They're talking about getting ready for automation and AI. Well, it's all being done based on the fact that people can go to school. But if they're crushed under student debt, they're not getting the retraining. They're not able to go back and become skilled workers in a rapidly changing economy. So we got to get our head around this and say the federal government will pay its share to make this happen, and the New Democratic Party will make that happen. Well, I'm not telling viewers anything they don't already know. They're getting totally ripped off with cell phone rates. We pay some of the highest rates in the world. My daughter was in Africa. She got better download rates in Rwanda that she could get in downtown Ottawa, let alone try coming home to Northern Ontario. And why is that? Well, Ottawa is run by the telecom lobby. You can't walk down a hallway in Ottawa without bumping into a telecom lobbyist. They have a protected market. They're free from real competition. They've been mollycoddled for years, and the deal was, well, give us this protected market and we'll give people a deal. Well, they're not giving people a deal. They're not giving people a deal out at Hoyle or, in Kenogami, where people don't even have access to high-speed internet. The data caps, you turn around and you've exceeded your data usage and they're hosing you. So we're saying we will immediately cap the data rates. Boom. Whatever your base rate is, that's what it's going to be, and we're going to push to make sure that we have the broadband high-speed internet across the north. Mr. Trudeau says he's going to work with the telecoms to lower it. Well, yeah, he's going to go back to the lobbyists and ask them to lower their profits. I don't think so. What we're saying is you guys are making enough profit right now, you're making record profit, you are going to cap the rates so that people aren't getting ripped off. And we're not shy about doing that, and that's what we're going to be telling the telecom lobby. There's a number of initiatives that I'm really excited on. I think we have a huge opportunity in Timmins-James Bay because we have for example, the growing agricultural sector is something that I think people were very much taken by surprise. 20 years ago, people were not thinking agriculture was going to be a future in Northern Ontario. We have some really great niche markets because people in an urban setting like Timmins want real food. They want to be able to get food locally. We've got some great entrepreneurs who are setting up. I want to work on more bringing back cooperative opportunities so people can start to build more into niche markets in agriculture. So we have, again, more of a diversion of our economy. Diversification. We'll have forestry, we have mining. We need to move in on research. That's something that's really important. Climate research is essential right now, and certainly I think the agricultural component, the potential in Northern Ontario is enormous, and it will benefit our region in the long term. Well, it's really interesting, the disconnect at the national campaign level from what I think the growing uncertainty about the potential for catastrophic climate change. I mean, we had young people marching out in the streets in Timmins just recently, walking out of school. Canada, year in, year out, our greenhouse gas emissions rise. Year in, year out, government officials say, oh, we've got this plan, we're going to meet the Paris Accord, we're going to meet the Kyoto Accord. We don't meet any of our targets. And being nice about it isn't going to happen. The Conservatives are going to do some tax credits while they're massively expanding the oil sector. That's not going to happen. The Liberals bought a pipeline. They say we're going to be, get better urban efficiencies. That's not going to happen. We need to get our heads around the fact that the 21st century economy is about sustainability. What I'm really excited with the New Democratic Party is we're talking about a massive new Green Deal, a climate bank to do investment in infrastructure in alternate energies, but also a massive retrofit program which will help homeowners drop heating costs. It will kickstart, local, like the construction sector will benefit. And the parliamentary budget officer said it'll create 300,000 new jobs. So in the north, we pay enormous energy costs because of the cold. Let's start getting smart about sustainability. So it's something that we're not really hearing. I'm feeling that the disconnect between people's uncertainty about the environmental crisis and the blah, blah, blah from politicians. I think in 2019, it's time we got serious about this. Well, I find it extraordinary that people, they can't attack me anywhere else. So they're on Facebook claiming I own a house in Toronto. Yeah, I live in Toronto. I live in Toronto Street, which is on beside Montreal Street, which is beside Quebec Street, which is in a place called Mileage 104 in Northern Ontario. And I'm proud of where I live, and everybody knows where I live. The idea that I'm not visible, can anybody out there in television land name any Liberal or Conservative backbencher from Northern Ontario, ever? Here's the facts. I was born in Timmins, my parents were born in Timmins. When people want to talk about the history of Timmins, I'm the guy that gets interviewed. Cobalt is very much part of Northern Ontario. It was very much part of our riding until the Liberal government allowed that riding to be cut in two. And it's a mining town. I have deep roots in Timmins, deep roots in Kirkland Lake, deep roots in Cobalt, deep roots in Iroquois Falls, deep roots in Cochrane, and I would say that people would recognize that I'm probably one of the most visible members of Parliament anywhere, and I'm in the ridings and across the community all the time. So if the other guys, if that's their story, that they were born in Timmins and so was I, but they'll somehow be more visible in the riding, well, get out there, start door knocking. That's what this is about. Get out, make yourselves known, because we're out there every day. Certainly in Timmins, the housing crisis is causing real uncertainty. I mean, 2,000 homeless people in the city of Timmins. I'm feeling that people don't believe Justin Trudeau. That we picked that up. I mean, he gave such a hopeful vision in 2015, and people now think he's looking out for his friends. I hear that all the time. People really don't trust Andrew Scheer. They know if they vote for the Conservatives, they're getting Doug Ford policies. The other issue we're picking up a lot is concern about the fentanyl crisis. It's devastating. I launched the first fentanyl task force a few years ago when fentanyl first hit. Before that, I launched the OxyContin task force, working with medical community, working with police, working social workers to raise awareness. But the fentanyl crisis is certainly hitting us in a massive way, and we need to get on this. And this is some of the work that I've been doing with the northern communities, and I want to really get that fentanyl task force to update in terms of the kind of drugs that are coming into Timmins. They're having a devastating effect. I think people are very frustrated, certainly in Ottawa. I mean, I work on two tracks. One is I'll be there to negotiate and work across party lines, which I've had enormous success in doing on numerous initiatives like the National Palliative Care Strategy that I received unanimous support, like forcing the government to close the horrific underfunding in the child welfare system where kids have been dying. We received support across party lines. But I'm also willing to drop the gloves to defend our region and our people, and you got to be willing to do that. I think what's unfortunate with the federal, provincial, municipal issues right now is that we have, Doug Ford is a very negative force, and he plays Donald Trump style politics. I don't like a lot of what Prime Minister Trudeau's doing because I represent a different party. But I recognize that he is willing to work with municipalities, whereas Mr. Ford seems to want to play hot button issues. I'm very concerned that Andrew Scheer will carry on that kind of Doug Ford policies, and we don't need that in the north. We need the mayors to know that the province will work with the feds, and the feds will work with the province and work with municipalities, that we will all work for the benefit of our region. That's my focus. That's what I've been doing. That's my record. Well, Jagmeet came to Timmins last year, and we had an extraordinary time. People really saw his charisma, his openness, his love of people, and you're really seeing that on the national campaign. He's really blossomed. When he came north, he wanted to go to see the water situation and go to Saskatchewan. He wanted to meet with the young cadets because he thought the cadet program in the north is really amazing. He went to Ecom Timber to see, state-of-the-art mill right here in Timmins, and to meet with small business leaders. He went out to Ecoterio, where, what I think people have been surprised is how credible Jagmeet's French is. He's a positive force, and he's also not afraid to take on the billionaire class. So we're in a time when people are going increasingly suspicious of politicians, being in the clutch of lobbyists, looking out for the giant companies like SNC Lavalin, and giving offshore tax havens. Jagmeet, they think, is a straight shooter. So I think he's run an extraordinarily positive and feisty campaign. Well, I think we're staying focused on the things that matter to people. This is why we're talking about dental care when the other guys are talking about corporate tax breaks. We're talking about student debt when they're talking about, alleviating and changing student debt. We're saying, no, we're going to take it on head on. I think we're probably going back into a minority government. And in a minority government, you want someone who knows their way around. Someone who can actually get things done, someone who knows how to use the committee structure, who can talk to the national media, who has a reputation across party lines, who can go up to a cabinet minister and not kiss his ring, but say, listen, these are the issues, this is what I'm expecting you to do, I'm willing to work with you, but I'm going to come at you hard if you don't do it, because we're going to get this thing done. That's certainly my record, and I think in Timmins, it's like, are you going to vote for a backbencher or somebody who's going to be a major player in a minority government? And in that minority government, we could get a lot of change, a lot of really good, positive things negotiated for Canadians, and that's my plan. Well, I'm one of the few MPs who've had extensive experience in minority and in majority. In a minority government, you're having to be on your toes all the time, and you don't get to travel very far out of Ottawa because votes are coming down all the time. But what you're doing is you've got better tools to hold government to account. I think after the Harper government, we saw how arrogant the Stephen Harper government became, and that people became very frustrated with him. That's why people gave Justin Trudeau a majority, because Justin Trudeau made promises on electoral reform. Well, he threw that out the window. On Indigenous reconciliation, he threw that out the window. On being a feminist, well, he threw Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott out the window. If he didn't have a majority government, I don't think he would have gone so far off the rails. If he'd had a minority that we could have pressed him on, we would have worked on the issues where we could find common ground, and we would have been able to have better levers to hold him accountable for where he was manipulating the system and breaking the ethics rules, which he's done time and time again. So in a minority government, you really need MPs who can keep their eye on the ball, who have experience, who know how to do the hard work of actually getting results out of government. And that's, in this minority government, I think will be very, very important. Well, there's a number of initiatives I'm really looking forward to being part of after this election, if the people of Timmins-James Bay support me. I've been working with the Polar Bear Research Habitat in Cochrane, which I think has world-class potential. I think Timmins, we really need to, and I've been working with some of the arts groups on this, to move towards building an arts center in Timmins. We're the only center in the north, large community, without an arts center. We have a symphony and no arts center. If we had an arts center in Timmins, we would really revitalize the downtown. I think it would really help bring, professional people to Timmins. We could really celebrate the incredible arts, music, theatrical culture that we have, and I think it would really build on the downtown. I've got a lot of experience in this. I helped rebuild the Classics Theatre. We have a lot of, I think, support. So I've been doing groundwork on this leading up to the election. It's on, of course, hold while we're in the election, but it's something. An art center in the downtown of Timmins is a project that's very close to my heart. I think what people know is that across party lines, I get things done. I'm a straight shooter. I have a national reputation as someone who can explain what's going on and move the political yardsticks, which I've done time and time again. I don't play games. I don't do gotcha moments. I'm focused always on the people. I'm present. I'm in all the communities. You haven't seen an MP as present in any of the North as I have been, because I love the people here. I'll say it quite simply. I hate politics. I freaking hate politics, but I love our people, and I'm willing to do the work that's necessary, the hard work and the hard lifting to get things done. That's my promise, and that's the promise that I've kept, and I will continue to keep.